Hi there, it's Steven Hughes, your hardship real estate pro, back again on the YouTube channel. Today I have Bryce Blackburn with Oasis Senior Advisors, right?
Correct.
Hey, I almost said something different. I'll have a story on why I almost said something different here in a second. And guys, again, I always say this, but in case you haven't watched the video on the YouTube channel, I could be like all kinds of other people and do the whole introduction myself, but I always feel like I do a disservice to my guest if I do that. I always prefer if my guests introduce themselves because they're going to do such a better job if they tell us a little bit about themselves and what their business is about. And then, of course, we just have a conversation where I just ask some questions, and hopefully you have some questions and thoughts if you want to leave some comments below. So, Bryce, tell us a little bit about yourself and your business.
Yeah. So let me rewind the clock back to the day that Governor Herbert announced closing schools for COVID. I, at the time, was a store manager with Walmart in Clinton, Utah's third highest volume store. And after 25 and a half years, I said, It's just time to walk away and do something different." And my wife and I came across a broker that helps people find their own business ownership. And 4 months later, we made Oasis Senior Advisors our franchise here in Utah, where we help seniors navigate finding assisted living and memory care. Typically, it's their children that we help, but we help navigate that whole process during an emotional time, as well as during a time when most seniors and their families have no experience going down that path, and helping provide them with resources such as estate attorneys, financial advisors, etc. But that's what we do. We help people navigate finding the right assisted living or memory care, and really providing education in a world that there's just not enough common knowledge or experience out there. That's us at Oasis Senior Advisors. My wife Emily and I live here in Kaysville. We have an employee, Cami, who lives in Syracuse. She has worked in a skilled nursing facility as well as multiple assisted living communities. She's also a Medicare agent. We recently hired Karen Straw in St. George, who is also the owner of Dementia Agility. She is a very well trained and also trains others with regards to dementia training. So that's our team of four. We cover the entire state of Utah.
I think that's wonderful. And, it's interesting. People who've watched the channel know a bit of my story, and you know some of my story. I want to dive a little bit into just people who are watching the video might not know some of the different types of senior communities because so many people just think, oh, it's just a retirement facility, or they think nursing home. Maybe mom is in a condo or, single family home, but then you come along to help with what's called a placement service, right? That's
Correct.
typically what it's called. But you're trying to help educate them to move them into a new type of senior community. What are those options, and what are the differences between them, Bryce?
Yeah. Let's start with a skilled nursing facility, AKA rest home, AKA care center, AKA old folks home. These are the communities that typically the residents are there for one of two reasons. One, they've maybe had a bad stroke or a bad fall where being in the home is not safe. It requires a lot of care, usually two people to transfer them to the bathroom. These communities in the state of Utah charge around $9,300 a month. And the second individual that goes to a skilled nursing facility is someone who's recently just had a surgery and just needs a couple extra days before they can go home, maybe to recuperate a little bit more. Regardless of what reason they're there for, they typically lay in bed all day long. That's kind of the hospital environment that they are in. The assisted living community where we place our clients into is really for those individuals who may need some assistance, such as with medications, to make sure they're taking medications appropriately. These communities in Utah, on average, are about $3,500 a month. And some clients that we place into these communities are still independent. I had one gentleman who I placed about a year ago who still drives, still works, and simply he was having some falls that the daughter was really scared and nervous about. And so him moving to an assisted living community just puts extra eyes on him. And so in an assisted living community, they are provided 3 meals a day. They have activities. Sometimes they go up the canyon to look at the leaves changing. They go on weekly expeditions to the theater or shopping at Smith's or Walmart or wherever it might be. And these individuals typically do need some form of care level, but they may range all the way from independent to needing a lot of care levels. The third type of community is what we would call a memory care. These communities are locked down. It's typically someone who has dementia, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's. They are unsafe to be left alone with regards to wandering, elopement. And so these communities are locked down. And the average cost in Utah is about $4,800. Again, that ranges by community. And the second individual that would go to memory care, even if they don't have elopement potential, would be someone that really needs a lot of care level. There are more nurses in the memory care units, which most assisted living communities in Utah also have memory care as part of their community. But that's the memory care. And then the fourth type of community in Utah is what we would refer to as an independent living community, which there are some in Utah, not very many. Those individuals are very independent. They do not need care levels. Independent living communities do not provide care levels. So it's a great interim between the home and maybe an assisted living. The downside is oftentimes an individual will move to an independent living community, get to know friends, get to know those that work in the community. And then as their health deteriorates, typically they have to move to an assisted living community. Oftentimes we encourage, based on current health, let's just move to an assisted living community in the beginning. Those are the four types of communities that exist in Utah.
Yeah, and there's a couple questions with that. One's probably more general for people watching, and one maybe a little selfish on my end. But people watching might be curious. This very common question, I'm sure you get all the time. But is Medicare going to pay for all this, Bryce?
That's a great question. So, in a skilled nursing facility, Medicare/Medicaid is available, as well as they do accept insurances. In an assisted living, unfortunately, it's all private pay, meaning these companies are privately owned. They do not accept any insurances. They do not accept Medicare, Medicaid, with exception to two government programs. And these two programs are very similar, as they both require the resident to be receiving at least two levels of care. The levels of care would be assistance with bathing, assistance with getting dressed, assistance with eating, assistance with transferring, getting around, to the cafeteria, to the bathroom, to the activities, to the bus that they might go on an excursion on. So with the first one, it's called Medicaid New Choices Waiver. And there's a misnomer that a lot of our clients say, oh, well, I have regular Medicaid, so that will pay for my stay in an assisted living. And that's simply not true. If they qualify financially, meet the government criteria financially to receive regular Medicare or Medicaid, then they would likewise financially meet that qualification on the Medicaid New Choices waiver. So the criteria for the waiver is really, there are three. One, they have to live in an assisted living for 365 days before they can even apply. There is a shorter route going through a skilled nursing facility, but to be in a nursing facility, they have to receive a physician's orders. Once the nursing facility says, oh, they're good to discharge, they can't just say, well, I want to stay. It's based on the physician. And so it's really hard to, I guess, meet that criteria in a skilled nursing facility. And so going to an assisted living, you have to be there for 1 full year before you can even apply. Then it takes an additional 4 to 6 months just for the application process. So it's very timely. And the criteria is you have to be there 365 days. You have to be receiving 2 levels of care. So any of those levels I mentioned, showering, bathing, dressing, transferring, also assistance with medication management would count. And the community has to sign off to the state of Utah. It's federal money managed by each state. And they have to sign off saying, yes, we are providing 2 levels of care to John Doe or Jane Doe. And then the third criteria is they have to meet the financial. They will do a look back. I believe it's 5 years or 3 years. I'm not sure, at assets. And so we would always encourage anyone, meet with an estate attorney now. Don't wait, because there are ways that you can spend your money and use your money so that it helps you become qualified down the road when you do move to an assisted living or your parents move to an assisted living. So that's what's called the Medicaid New Choices Waiver. The other and only other government program that will pay for care level in an assisted living is for veterans and their spouses, which sadly most veterans know nothing about. This is money that the government has already put away, but they don't do a very good job advertising this to veterans. This is what's called Veterans Aid and Attendance. It is for receiving care. So the good news about this is they can also be paid for their care levels staying in the home if the care is provided by anyone aside from their spouse. So if I'm a veteran, I need care, I can't receive this money to turn around and have my spouse, my wife, provide that care for me. I can pay my children. I could pay a neighbor, a church member, home health hospice company, a companionship company. I just can't pay my spouse. More typically, though, is for someone who actually goes to an assisted living and they are receiving care levels. Again, all of those care levels, except they do not consider medication management as a care level that they reimburse for. The good news about the aid and attendance for veterans is they can actually apply before they ever go to an assisted living. And it's based on what's called letter of intent. So if I'm a veteran and I submit my letter of intent before the end of January, several months down the road, because it's a process, when they approve that, they will back pay to the month that I submitted my letter of intent. So it's good to have it done before the next month begins, because it adds one whole extra month. And again, it's not something we help clients apply for, but we do have resources. The VA can help. There are private companies that help, estate attorneys that we refer to that can help in the process of either the Medicaid New Choices Waiver or the aid and attendance. So those are the only two government programs. Everything else is private pay, whether it's long-term care insurance, selling assets, investments, having money in the bank, or receiving enough from pensions, Social Security, et cetera, to be able to make that monthly payment.
I think that that's all just aptly said because it's a daunting task that kids and grandkids don't know. And I say seniors don't know. No one knows. I think I told you at the last networking event how was sitting down with a couple of estate attorneys and I have a couple of meetings this upcoming week. And it's funny, there's just not that many estate planning attorneys. And even amongst that crowd, there's a lot of attorneys that, say they practice estate law and some of this, they don't necessarily know some of these things. It's really interesting. And a service like yours is a big deal because there's so many seniors, not just in Utah, but in a whole country that are really needing the guidance. And it's only getting, for lack of a better word, I'd say worse because there's just not enough people to help them.
Yeah.
So hopefully, like just information like this that you're saying will help people who are watching it because there's just not enough information out there. I mean, even online, this information is hard to find. I think it's hard to find online.
Yeah, I would throw in just a couple thoughts. Sometimes children come together during Thanksgiving, Christmas, birthdays, whatever it might be, and they realize mom isn't doing very well, dad's not doing very well. We need to find an assisted living. And in doing so, they have the right intentions. And typically they have someone that says, "Oh, I've heard of a place, or I drive by a place, or I live by a place." And they talk to that community. They move mom in, and they've just made potentially two big mistakes. One is that a lot of these communities don't accept the Medicaid New Choices Waiver as payment plan. And that's because, based on the state of Utah guidelines, they can only charge their resident who's on the waiver X number of dollars because financially they only have X number of dollars. And so that mistake that children make is moving mom or dad into one of these communities that do not accept the waiver. And as their money eventually runs out, they hear about the waiver or they talk to the community, and that community says, well, you're going to have to move your mother or father to another community that does accept the waiver. And so now all those friends that they've just met, they have to start all over. It's stressful for seniors. And now they move to the second community, and that community who does accept the waiver says, well, we only allow X number of our residents to be on the waiver. We already have a list, so we have to put you at the bottom of the list. So now children are having to come together and either A, deciding to move mom or dad back home or in with one of them, or they have to come up with the finances to stretch that out until mom or dad now can apply for the waiver in their second community. The
Mhm.
second mistake that children oftentimes make is moving mother or father into a community, assisted living community. Life is great, but now their dementia or their Alzheimer's or their Parkinson's starts to progress, and they now become challenged with eloping from the building. And then the children get a phone call saying, hey, your dad is now a flight risk, a wander risk, an elopement risk. We don't have memory care in our community. You need to come and move your father to another community. And so now, at the worst time in that individual's cognitive ability to remember people in his own room or workers who are working with her, she has to move to a whole nother community and acclimate at a very challenging time. And so that's what we try to do here at Oasis Senior Advisors is we go through a set of questions. We do intake questions about their health, about their finances, about geographical preference. Is mom an introvert? Is dad an extrovert? Do they like a big building, a lot of residents, small building, few residents? We dissect all of that. We have a proprietary software that identifies the right communities for them. We then schedule tours on behalf of our clients or their children. And at that point, we join them. So yesterday, my wife and I drove down from Kaysville to the Springville area in Utah County. Our tour started at 5 o'clock. That's when the daughter was available. And we toured that community for about an hour and 10 minutes. And so we like to do that. We like to be there to help ask questions, answer questions, so that when that daughter walks out of that building, she has a better idea. Is this the right place for my father? We like to tour 3 communities so that we don't overwhelm them with which one said this, which one did that. So we like to show them 3. If they eventually want to see more than 3, we'll gladly schedule a 4th or 5th tour. But essentially, we want them to find the right community. And with our software and with our experience knowing what communities to avoid, there are some who are extremely short staffed. And that's not a place that I'm confident placing anyone's parents or themselves. And so we take the hassle out of that to try and find the right community. That's what we do here at Oasis Senior Advisors. Our mission is to find the right community for our clients.
The question I personally have is I always struggle a little bit with the benefit of independent living because people want to kind of go there. And what I find is their stay is short because their health sometimes predicates, oh, they should have just gone to assisted living, or, oh, their health was so good. Maybe they should have just been in like a patio home or a small condo. Cause yeah, they might have the cafeteria and kind of the community, but then it's like, oh, I had to get rid of all this stuff I didn't really want to get rid of. And now I'm in this like tiny apartment. What I like about what you said is that in your service with Oasis Senior Advisors, you're sitting down as a professional and as an expert with not only the parents, but with also their kids to go through so many things to make sure there are not potential problems down the line. And it's not just financial problems. We're talking about problems that would be emotional and, health problems. I mean, gosh, especially when you bring up dementia and Alzheimer's. My wife Ashley, her grandmother, has very advanced Alzheimer's. I mean, so advanced. I mean, we expect, she'll probably pass the next year or 2. And it's been very difficult. So we personally live with those challenges. I mean, I couldn't imagine if, her family had made basically mistakes with her. That type of guidance with someone I think is tantamount to make sure that the mistakes are not made.
The truth is, Stephen, there are some great communities out there, assisted living communities, skilled nursing communities. The fact is that everyone has an opinion. You and I and 10 other people could all go to McDonald's at the same time, order the same food, have the same person wait on us. And of the 12 of us going at the same time and eating the same food, we might have several of us say, I didn't like the service. Some would say, I didn't like the food. Some would say it's too hot, too cold, whatever. Assisted living communities are like that. Everyone has expectations. It's their dear loved one that they are moving in, and they want the best care for their loved one. But we have just our hearts have melted in working with a lot of these communities because we see, majorly speaking, that these residents are just loved. They become family inside the community. But where we feel we bring value is that education. And I'll give just a quick example. We recently placed a gentleman into an assisted living during the initial meeting with the wife and 3 daughters. When I very first sat down, thinking that we're going to be moving him to an assisted living before I get to this meeting at their home, at the wife's home, we sat down and the first thing that they said was, we don't think he can go to an assisted living. We think he is going to have to go to a skilled nursing home. So my question is to get to know his situation better, is to ask questions. Why do you think that? And their response was, well, because he's in a wheelchair. Sometimes he needs help getting out of bed and into a wheelchair. And so their understanding was he's not going to be eligible to go to an assisted living. And fortunately, I was able to navigate that with them. And within the last few weeks, he actually moved into an assisted living because that is what they do. If someone is a 2-person transfer, skilled nursing is probably the right place, unless they go to an assisted living on hospice. Otherwise, skilled nursing is probably the right place. But if they can get up on their own, walk around on their own, get up and get into their wheelchair, or even do all of that with the assistance of one person, then assisted living is the right place for them. So just being able to educate and navigate, as you said, a very emotional, stressful time, that's where we like to bring value. And I haven't mentioned this yet, Stephen. What we do at no cost to our clients. We get paid by the assisted living, similar to a real estate agent. Our fees are paid by the community, regardless of which community we place into. And per our contracts, our fees cannot be passed on to our clients or their families. So we are absolutely free, no cost. And in some cases, we can actually save money when we're talking with a director because we know them all. When we're saying, hey, they can afford the monthly fees, but can you knock a couple $100 off the move-in fee, the deposit, which they all charge? Some charge $1,000, some charge up to $3,000. And sometimes the community will say, yeah, we'll knock $500 off. And so that's where we can actually save money where a family doing it on their own can't. The community knows that we're showing multiple communities, so they're willing to work with us as a partner with them to say, yeah, I'll knock $200 or $300 off their monthly payment or off their move-in fee or whatever it might be. Again, that's where we bring value.
That was going to be my last question. So I love it. We are pretty much out of time, and really the way I end these is I always ask if you had any other thoughts or comments you wanted to leave us with before we end.
Yeah, well, thank you. And thank you for your time, Stephen. This is great. And hopefully viewers can watch this recording and learn something. Our mission is really to find the right place for our communities, anywhere from St. George to Logan. We cover all of Utah. And also we have a lot of franchise counterparts across the United States. So if someone has a parent or loved one outside of the state of Utah, feel free to contact us. We'll make that connection with you and for you. Ultimately, I will tell you, we love what we do, and we love these seniors. They're amazing people. They have stories, and they just need to be loved. They need to be in a community where they're safe. If they're falling down, if they're alone, they are at least getting a social life They're getting good meals in these communities, and they oftentimes thrive. And we truly believe that while a lot of people feel like they're giving up their independence or losing their independence, moving to a community actually gives them more independence. Now they have someone that can take them to the grocery store, someone that can take them to doctor visits. They're meeting friends, making friends, and so their independence actually improves rather than is taken away. So thank you for your time. Great questions. Would love to help anyone that has questions. Please feel free to contact us. Absolutely.
Tell us real quick how people can get in contact with you.
Yeah. You can either reach us at 801 663 8933, 801 663 8933, or you can email us at B as in boy, Blackburn at youroasisadvisor.com. So BBLACKBURN at youroasisadvisor.com. Or you can find us online, Oasis Senior Advisors /Ogden.
Awesome. And of course, we're going to put that in the show description notes below. And hopefully, guys, you'll reach out to Bryce if you have any questions. Of course, if you want to like and share this video or comment below, please feel free. Thanks so much for being here, Bryce. And
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye bye.